we on?
We're on the air.
So, thank you. Good evening. This is a meeting of the Kennebunkport Planning Board, a hybrid meeting, and you can find the website and the call-in details, basically, if you want to comment on any of the items we're going to discuss tonight on the website for Kennebunkport. First, I'll say that we have two members that are not going to be here tonight. One is Tom, the chair of our committee, and the other is Scott, who will not be here as well. So everybody is voting, okay? All the alternates are voting. And attendance, we have Ed, myself, Larry, George, and Mike. The first item I'll take is approval of the minutes. I want to point out that there were some changes made there. They were pretty minor changes, basically, as far as I was concerned and Larry was concerned, but they will be amended minutes. Did everybody get a chance to see them?
Yes.
Yes.
I'll take a motion then.
So I'll move to approve the minutes as amended.
Do I have a second?
Second that motion.
Okay. And Ed?
Agree.
I agree.
Agree.
Agreed.
Agree.
Okay. Then that being taken care of, we can get right to the agenda. And the first item that I want to bring up is number 230701, St. Anne's Episcopal Church. That is being described by Mr. Walsh. And this is, after he describes it, we'll have a public hearing. We'll open public hearing.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
I do want to comment that I got something in the mail today that looked like a whole complete revised application. Is that true?
Revised plans.
Okay.
Yep.
Can you describe what's revised on it for those of us who just got it this afternoon? And
Absolutely.
haven't had a chance to look at it?
Sure. Do you want me to go through the presentation in that it's a
Briefly,
public hearing?
very briefly.
Okay. Okay, we can do that. We've got a PowerPoint there, and I will breeze through it just as quick as I can. Again, Bill Walsh, Walsh Engineering, and I'm here with Shep Hill, who is the senior warden of the vestry. We've been working since last summer with St. Anne's on the project, assessing the wall and developing the design of it. Next, please. As you all know, this is an aerial view of the property that St. Anne's owns. It's located on the east side of Ocean Avenue on Old Fort Point. The property encompasses 3.6 acres. The orange line that you see there is the actual seawall, so I've just highlighted that. Next slide. The wall actually extends off of the property just at the Old Fort Beach side, so there's a piece, that green line that crosses there is the approximate property line, and that section that's in the forefront is a piece of the wall that has extended off of it. One second here. There was an easement that we obtained through the town, through a town vote for that property, so that's included as part of our project to rebuild that section of the wall. The existing wall, next slide, please. That's the easement. Next slide. This is the existing wall, and what we're proposing is replacement of about 450 feet of the wall. It starts where that red line is, that vertical red line is where it starts, and it goes to the right. So our assessment has been to look at the wall, figure out, the status of it, what it is, what it's about, and sort of its longevity. And that's really what this is about, is trying to provide longevity both to the wall and the structures behind. Next slide, please. It's a masonry rock and mortar wall. It's constructed probably from rocks that were just lifted off of the beach and mortared together to create the wall that's there. It varies in height, kind of goes up and down. Next slide, please. Next slide. This is an image from sort of the Old Fort Beach side. You can see it close up. It's got a concrete cap on it, and that's the masonry wall, mostly built on ledge. Everywhere we saw it's built, the base of it's just built right off of the ledge. It's about 3 feet below the 100-year flood event. Next slide, please. And it has seen a fair amount of abuse over the years, just from the wave action. What circle that you see there is actually a hole in the base of the wall. Next slide. There's holes down here at the base as well. That's kind of the interface between the ledge and the wall where it's just getting hit constantly, and there's water probably that comes from the backside that erodes it. Next slide. Just a larger view of it. Next slide, please. Overhead view, again, this is the wall is shown in the orange, and the flood zones are here. If you can see the tags on there, the zones that are on the face of the wall are all velocity zones. They're in the VE zone. Elevation 18 is about where the most of it is at. There's a little bit on the very backside that's at elevation 15, but pretty much all of it is at elevation 18. And next slide, please. This is a schematic cross-section of the wall, so that's the masonry wall. The blue line is the actual effective flood zones, but the red line up above would be the actual 100-year flood zone, which is what we typically design towards. So you can see that top of that wall is at about elevation 15. Now, it varies in places, but I'm going to say on average it's probably about elevation 15. So we're going to propose to raise this wall up. Next slide, please. This, I think, is the video. If you hit the, this is the wall's taken plenty of abuse. This is the December 23rd, 2022 storm. You can see the waves crashing up on the wall and riding up on it right here along the rectory. All of that caused some significant damage that has been repaired, but you can see, as most of you all have seen probably over time, the storms that hit this coast, and they are seem to be coming faster and more furious. Here, next slide, please. Oh, go next one, please. That's just one of that waves crashing, same storm event that beat on that. But you can see the splash actually probably hits the rectory on that. Next slide, please. This is some of the damage that was done from that December storm, and you can see it gets over the top of the wall and typically is washing it out. It's that erosive velocities that are running, that wave that you saw sort of running along the side, that water goes over the top and just erodes the backside of it. Next slide, please. This is, again, I don't know if you can see right in the center, there's actually light in there. It's towards the end of that pipe, and that it actually poked a hole through this section of wall. Next slide, please. And that's over by the back of the church where it ripped up all the pipe that was there and eroded that backside. And this has happened before. There's a little patio that's by the end of the pipes there that has gotten wiped out once or twice. So this is a sort of a continual problem that we've been seeing on the backside. Next slide, please. So the proposed reconstruction, this is an aerial view. You see the church is up on the upper right of the image that you're looking at. The rectory is down on the bottom right. The yellow line represents where we're proposing to replace the wall. Next slide, please. That's just another view, aerial view. You can see the yellow line. That's the existing wall that will be replaced. Next slide. This is the illustrative image of both the existing wall and proposed wall. So left side is existing wall, and right side is proposed wall. The masonry wall on the left, and then the concrete core wall is what's being proposed. That will have a veneer face on it. That's what those gray pieces on the right wall represent. The top of the wall, as I said, we'll raise that up to elevation 18. A footing will be at the base. That's the horizontal yellow piece that you see at the bottom. That will be, what they'll do is hammer out ledge and create sort of a flat space for that, and that will be actually pinned into the ledge that's below. So they'll actually drill holes, they'll use rebar, and they will epoxy those right into place, and that helps hold the wall and keep it from tipping. It will have veneer on both sides where it's exposed, so it'll appear to be a rock masonry wall, but it will have that center concrete core. with a reinforced concrete core that will give it the strength that's necessary. The top of the wall will have a concrete cap, very much like the existing wall has on it. Next slide, please. We talked about this a little bit at the last meeting, and this is a representation of how this wall gets built during construction. What they will do is they'll remove, it's showing the proposed wall in place there where the yellow is, but what they would do is take out about 60 feet of the wall. They will, well, I'm sorry, step back once. They will place what we call bulk bags. They're really big sandbags that are picked up by equipment. And those bulk bags get placed in front of the wall. That keeps the water from rushing into that once that wall is taken out. So think of that wall as dropping down, feet, and we have to keep the water out. So that's what those bulk sandbags do. The bulk bags help protect it from the wave action. And they actually they wrap plastic in, I'll say, in the inner core of that bulk sandbag so that helps prevent the water from coming through. Do they have to pump it? Yeah, sometimes if the storms get high enough, that's what they do. On the left side of this, what we are proposing here is to have the bulk bags on the front side. On the back side are under, I'm going to call it a storm event. The contractor is going to be responsible for having enough bulk bags on the back side that he can put a second row on the back side. So that's sort of an extra layer of protection, mimicking, I guess, what I'll call the wall, for lack of a better term, that there's another layer of protection there to help protect the rectory or the church or the columbarium that are behind it. Next slide, please. This is a project that we did down on Parsons Beach. That's an actual image of the bulk bag, so you can see how big they are and stacked up like that. And that's, just wanted to give you a visual representation of those. So those get stacked in front of the wall as they build it. Next slide, please. You did get copies of the plans, and what we've done is sort of advance the plans a little bit further, and also based on the comments that we got at the last meeting. We've given on the plans, there's a profile view, which means we're looking at the face of the wall, and one of the reasons we did that is we're advancing the plans to we call them construction set level. And what we needed to know was kind of where the ledge steps up and down. So this wall they'll step it along there. And that gave us that visual representation. So that's in the plans. We've adjusted some cross-sectional views so that we knew where some of the critical places were that we needed to get access. The corner that you're looking at right there, this is I'll say from the beach, looking back on the backside of the rectory. But there's a corner that's very close to the rectory. A corner of the wall and the rectory are within about 6 feet of one another. So we've adjusted the wall a little bit in that place. We had to pull it away from the rectory a little bit because of constructability. We can't get too close to that and undermine the foundation of the rectory, so we had to pull the wall away just a little bit. Also gives us space to put our footing in as well. So it got pulled out just a little bit there, and on the other corner, which is the one on the, sort of, I'll say the ocean corner, the southerly corner of the rectory, it's very tight there, and I think I talked about this last time, where we've bumped it out a little bit just for the same purpose, which was to provide for enough space to build it and gain access through there. We adjusted the erosion control measures. I think the bulk bags that you see there have been added. And we've added the heel, I'll call it, to the wall, which is the backside of the footer. And we've shown, we've have better details on our concrete and our reinforcing, which is the steel that goes in there. So I think those were the major changes. They didn't, I don't think they adjusted it too much, but that's really what we have. Happy to answer any questions.
When you talk about going into corners, are you talking about sharp corners or curves there?
They're on the wall itself, you mean? Or, yeah. See if we have a plan. I don't know if you can pull that back up. Most of the corners aren't real sharp. I'm trying to think of the one maybe that has
Yeah, C2.3.
has it.
I think that's got pretty much the run of the wall, it looks like.
Yeah, and there's one corner that is, there you go. That's a pretty good one there. There's a corner right at the bottom of that page where you're looking down at the top of yep, right there, a little bit to the right, right there, right where it hits is very close to the building, right, a little bit left, right there. So that's one of the places where we had to bump out a little bit, and what we did was we pulled it out and then we turned it in with a 45 and a 45. So we only pulled it out where we needed to. And the other place is gonna be, up on the upper right on that end of the rectory, or the right end of the rectory. Down a little bit more, right there. That section is the other piece that got bumped out just a little bit. So no real sharp corners there. They're more, I don't know, slight angles, I guess I'll call them, than sharp 90 degrees. The only sharp one I'll say is the one on the bottom left where,
You turn the corner.
yeah, where you turn the corner. That's probably the only real one. That's it. It's not 90, but it's probably an 80-degree corner or 120-degree corner.
Okay. Members of the board, questions?
Yes, I have some questions. So thanks for saying there's a revised plan.
Yep.
I did take a look at them. So, the sandbags, that's just, all of those are just temporary during construction.
Absolutely. They'll move. I should have said that. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
Larry.
if you would add that note in there, that'd be good. Because
Yep.
I was wondering what storm were you gonna add the ones behind the wall? So temporary during construction at the discretion of the contractor, right?
The ones in the front of the wall will be required, so when they take 60 feet out, they'll have to put those in.
Right.
And then the ones behind the wall will be at the discretion of I'm not gonna say even of the contract. We're gonna be watching this and it's gonna be, generally what you do is you're monitoring for storms. If a storm's coming and we know it's coming, they gotta put it in place, so.
Okay. Okay, that was one of my questions then. Starting on drawing C 3.3,
Yep,
so I did look at the floodplain management ordinance.
Yep.
And according to that, the height of the walls should be 2 feet above the flood zone elevation. So it seems like the top of the wall should be at elevation plus 20. Can you make that change?
I think part of the challenge with that's gonna be the visual effect of that.
Well, I thought about that, and, but that's what the ordinance, so you're gonna apply for an exception then?
I think we
Because
will, yeah.
So you are applying for an exception?
Yeah, I think we will. I honestly didn't see that, Larry, so
Okay.
we can certainly request that.
All right, so, so I won't be able to read.
I think the 2 feet's for freeboard probably, right? It's for,
Well,
yeah, I
everybody
think you're
knows
right.
the actual base flood elevation is above the FEMA flood elevation, because you know, once you put a wave on there, it's gonna be higher. So, I mean, during the 100-year event, you could get overtopping easily.
right,
That's kind of irrelevant, but I do think that the 2 foot that the floodplain management ordinance adds to it, tries to anticipate some drawdown as the wave approaches approaches the structure, so that you don't get the whole 20-foot wave over the top.
Right.
So, but nevertheless, that's the point, I think, of the 2 foot, to provide an air gap and or anticipate some run-up of the wave.
Yep.
So you're gonna ask for an exception.
We are gonna ask for an exception on that, yep.
Are we talking waiver here?
A waiver, I guess, yeah. Well, I'm not sure what the difference is, but he's gonna ask that the provisions in the floodplain management ordinance are waived, so that the top of the wall is at the FEMA 100-year floodplain elevation. Of course, this, implies additional risk for the owner. I
Absolutely.
don't know if that's gonna have an impact on your flood insurance. Of course, that's not my topic.
Yep,
So, okay, so I have to revise the finding of facts. We can do that.
Yep.
So then I was looking at the riprap, that looks really good. So on the Last time I talked about 2.5 tons as a D50 size, but, you know, I looked at it again.
Yep.
You may need like a D50 of 5 tons, you know, with a range from 3 to 8 tons, something like that. So your 6-foot boulder is gonna weigh somewhere around 9 to 10 tons, and your 8-foot boulder is gonna weigh somewhere around 15 to 16 tons. So they're well, you know, they're good.
Yep.
But are you gonna have any smaller bits to
Yes.
tuck in?
Yeah,
Okay, there we go.
absolutely.
So are you gonna take those from quarries? You're
Yes.
gonna have them, okay.
Yes.
So in this case, this is why I brought this up, I think that you should specify a D50 of 5 tons or so. I mean, you need to actually confirm.
Yep.
But 5 or 6 tons, with a range from 3 to 8. I think that the quarry should actually weigh them and mark the weight on the rocks for you. And then, are you gonna have a placement specification? Because I get the feeling this could require some, some forethought before the contractor gets a hold of it, in terms of placing
Yeah.
not
a
just the
little of a-
boulders, but the actual quarried riprap.
It's
Yes.
a bit of a Tetris game.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yep.
so I really think, so, those are my suggestions on the riprap. Go heavy.
Yep, we
D50,
absolutely do.
5 to 6 tons and up, you know.
Yep.
Then, so I like your pin idea, you know, your 36-inch long stainless steel. The thing that worries me about when you say stainless, I think you should specify a particular grade.
Yep.
The usual 316, 318, and 304 tends to perform badly in the marine environment, so I'm I'm recommending you use duplex stainless steel or something, super duplex, something like that. It's out there, for the little bit you're using, it's not going to be much more expensive, but it will last much better in the marine environment. So then I had a bunch of questions, I had a bunch of comments on S 1.1.
Okay.
So, appreciate all your notes. I guess one of my requests is that you have a whole section called basis of design.
Yep.
And my suggestion is that you specify design life. The usual life is 20 years, and this is going to help in some of the other things I have down here. So then I think you should make some comments like, dimensions are in feet unless noted otherwise. Elevations are in feet, reference to NAVD 88, right? That's kind of important.
Yep.
Then the wall is located in the VE 18 zone with the highest astronomical tide of 6.7 feet. I don't know if that's so important, except for the VE 18, which you say you're going to ask for a waiver.
Yes.
And then, of course, the base flood elevation is 18 feet. Okay, so the height of the wall you're going to say is 18 feet. And of course the waiver, we talked about the waiver. Okay, so I think it's just I know there's somebody around here who can coach you on what the FEMA 100-year maximum wave height is. And the reason this is important is because I think the wall has been, it looks to me like it's been sized for active earth pressure, but I'm not sure that the performance of the wall during a 100-year storm event has been looked at. There's going to be some wave forces, and if you look at those, you have not only the hydrostatic force, but then you have the dynamic force. And the dynamic wave force can be like a 2-second impulse of several thousand pounds per square foot. During the time it takes for the wall to activate the passive earth pressure behind the wall, that wall is taking that entire force. Now, it's not going to be the whole height of the wall, it's going to be in the area of the breaking wave, right? But that's still, if it occurs at the top, you could need quite a bit of additional reinforcement just to take that wave load. So anyway, if you could just take a look at that, I think that's an important consideration. Then you may want to talk about significant wave height, corresponding significant wave height. I don't know what it's going to be, but it'll be around 8 or 10 feet, I guess. Then you might want to talk about a wind speed, maybe 100 miles an hour. That's probably not so important, but still, you might want to specify it. Then, then the other thing that once you've confirmed the adequacy of the wall for the 100-year storm, you may want to take a look at fatigue life. And this is going to mostly impact the steel. And again, I don't think a rigorous analysis is needed so much, but pick some spectra, 1, 5, 10, 20-year wave trains. Try to anticipate the number of impacts of those waves on the wall and anticipate whether, okay, this is the issue, whether you want to reduce the allowable stress in the rebar. The greater the number of impacts, the lower the allowable stress. And there's a bunch of curves out there that could guide you on this. And then I did think about the height of the wall. Do you need to put handrails on top or access points? See, when we were talking about a 20-foot wall, I'm thinking, okay, they're not going to like this because it's pretty tall, somebody could fall off. Okay, does that mean you need handrails? Or did you want to have some walkways behind the wall supported on the buttresses? So those buttresses are really a good idea. But you could, you could have a little walkway behind the wall. You could walk along the parapet there and look over. Of course, I'm just kind of guessing here.
Yep.
Anyway.
I think we'll be okay because of the height of the ground behind the wall versus the wall itself. So the wall actually acts as that fall protection, if you will. Somebody's on top of it.
You don't anticipate anybody walking on the wall?
I don't.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't.
Okay.
Well, it's not gonna be that wide, is it? Altogether, you're,
Foot, right?
Yeah.
The foot plus,
Yeah,
the
plus
stones.
that. Yeah, it's about 18 inches.
Okay.
squirrels.
So then I have some more specific comments. I was glad to see you using the grade 60 rebar.
Yep.
Excellent. Then in your concrete reinforcing, you've got 5 comments there. I think you should add a 6th one that says the minimum overlay is 50 times the bar diameter. You've complied that some places, but I think that's pretty important to put that in there. Then I know you've listed all the ACI documents. That's really good. That's exactly what I was doing. But do you want to have another section called reference where you refer to like the main uniform building code, the FEMA 2017 preliminary map and info for Kennebunkport? That's where I got, that's where I confirmed your VE 18.
Yep.
Maybe the land use ordinance, the floodplain management ordinance, and then some kind of coastal construction manual. There's a bunch of them out there.
Yep. That would all be part of the basis of design piece of it.
Yeah, it might be useful, because that would confirm the documents you referred to arrive at your solution.
Yep.
Then you've got your pull test load
Yep.
requirements. So you may want to insert one for number 7 bar, maybe, just a question mark.
Okay.
Then, when we were talking about a 20-foot wall, are you definitely firm you're never going to do 20 feet?
I'm pretty confident. I'm going to look at Shep, but I'm pretty confident.
Okay, well, that
That's
eliminates one of my comments then.
Yep.
Okay. So then, the ACI code does have requirements on minimum steel area, okay? So basically, for any, let's just talk about the wall in general terms. So for any portion of the wall, take a 1 linear foot of the wall, and then you take the thickness of the wall, that gives you an area, and some portion of that area is supposed to be steel, rebar. So I took a quick look at it. It seems to me that most of your number 5s need to be number 7s in order to satisfy this requirement, because you have a 1 foot spacing between those bars. You could reduce the spacing to 6 inches and meet the same, and meet the minimum steel requirement. But, it'd be simpler just to make them all number 7s. It'd be easier for the guys in the field to get the concrete in there. So what that means is that in your table in the middle here,
Mm-hmm.
all your add bars should be number 7. All your M bars should be number 7. And then, of course, then in the buttress, well, we'll get to that in just a second. So then also on your table here, you've got the base thickness. Well, the base thickness should be 1/8 of the wall height. So, or a foot, whichever is greater. Okay, so for the 8 foot to 10 feet, you've got 1 foot 2 inches thickness. I think it should be 1 foot 3 inches. On the 10 foot to 12 foot, you've got 1 foot 4 inches. I think it should be 1 foot 6 inches thick. Just suggestion. Then, okay, then your perforated drains. That's really good. That works good. And you've got, does the drain pipe go through the wall, or is that a weep hole through the wall? Does the drain deliver the water? It's a weep hole, right?
It's gonna go through the wall, yeah.
But is it just an open, you're gonna have, okay, you're gonna have the pipe, okay, the
Yeah.
pipe, okay. So my question is, for the perforated drain, are you gonna wrap it in a sock? You know, you've seen those, so it is gonna be encased in a sock to
Yep.
prevent the migration of the fines
Fines,
into the
absolutely.
pipe?
Yep.
Okay. You wanna make that note on the drawing? That's an extra step that would be easy to skip. So also, I noticed that you've got the lower perforated drain, you know, that's great. And you did have one about halfway up. Did you just eliminate that one? You know, on the wall here?
Could we, is that what you said?
Well, no, did you? Because it seemed like it was there on your original drawings. It's not there on this set. You've moved it up, or maybe you've moved it up to the top. I'm not sure what happened to it. I put it back in there.
Yeah. I don't know that we need it. It's backfilled with stone, right? The whole
Okay,
part of that, so.
all right.
I think it's gonna vary in height, probably based on what the ledge that we have right behind it.
Oh, yeah, right, yeah, okay. Okay, so basically you've got one perforated pipe at the bottom of the gravel, and then you've got the second one higher up.
Oh, I know what it is. The top one, the bottom one is a, I'll call it a foundation drain, for lack of better terms.
Yeah,
And then the other one was probably a storm drain pipe to carry the water flow that comes over the top.
okay, all right. Then, okay, I think that was it for that, the wall itself. Then the buttress, okay, these are shear walls. So, are you sure? Are you sure you don't need a shear key on this, on the bottom of this? Because basically you're saying that you're gonna drill and epoxy, you know, secure the rebar into the ledge.
Mm-hmm.
But, well, having the rebar take the shear, I think you should take a look at it.
Okay.
A shear key, which would be the same dimensions as the base, I think could really help stabilize improve the performance of your buttress walls. Then I know you've got the perforated drains going through the shear walls, I mean through your buttress. But are you sure you don't want to just cast a sleeve and then insert the pipe later?
I think that's how it would be done, yeah.
Okay, well,
Yep.
so I mean, so you may want to just show the sleeve on there with a note that the pipe would be inserted later.
Yep.
And then, okay, so then, well, so I think there some of the rebar that you showed in the elevation view was not included in the side view. So maybe somebody could double check double check all the rebars are shown everywhere. Then, okay, so then, you know, back on the minimum area, minimum steel area for concrete, that ratio.
Mm-hmm.
You've got two number 5 dowels at 24 inches on center with 90-degree standard hook at top, drill, and epoxy to lead. You know, maybe you want to make those number 8s on 16-inch on center, just a suggestion, again, based on area of steel, plus a number 5 dowel acting as a shear transfer is pretty, well, maybe it's a little optimistic. Anyway, number 8's on 16-inch centers seemed to me to be a little bit better. Then, then I did appreciate for the buttresses. I really thought that was good, but maybe you want to rearrange this a little bit and show an actual plan view. For those, you can definitely prepare a plan view for this, show your elevation, your side view, and then your plan view, so they all tie together. It'll actually help your designers keep track of what rebar is going where, which leads me to my final comment, that this is a pretty significant wall. Well, I guess I got 2 comments. So I would suggest that maybe you want to do a rebar bending schedule, because it's going to be easy for a contractor not to see everything that he's going to have to do. And he's going to tend to underestimate the quantity of material. There's a tremendous amount of rebar in this. So if you provided a rebar bending schedule, he would know how many of each type were going to be needed, so that I think it would improve the consistency among the bids. Anyway, it's just a suggestion. And then my last question really is, it's a significant construction, and did you want to do any certification of the wall? Did you want to go through that step, with somebody like DNV or Lloyd's? Lloyd's, they could help you, they could help provide some insight, and help quantify some of the risks associated with the wall. I don't know if you want to do that step. You may not actually get certified, but they could provide possibly some insights that a peer review might not discover. So that's taking it a significant step further, but it might help quantify some of the risks you're taking with the wall, because at some point it's going to overtop. That's what's going to happen.
Yep.
No comments from me?
That's it.
I'm
Thank
good.
you.
I'm fine.
You're
No
fine.
comments.
Okay, Ed?
Just a point to clarify, and maybe it's a question for Larry, but, or the Code Enforcement Office. This is the first time, in my recollection, I think I've been on the board 5 years now, that we've talked about the floodplain management ordinance. I thought, maybe that's a new ordinance. So I looked it up, it's not a new ordinance. But last time it was revised was in 2018, and it says that if you're going to do development in A130 or A0 or V130 zones, then you need to apply to the Code Enforcement Office for a permit, for a flood hazard development permit.
Yeah, we do those.
So I'm wondering if you've done that. I mean, then the description of the materials looks an awful lot like the materials that you've come here with.
Right. Yeah, it's usually done during, with the building permit, so we
Yes.
apply at that time.
And it looks like it's managed in that fashion.
Absolutely. Yep,
Right.
Yep, we do them for the
The only
seawalls.
time the planning board would get involved is if it had to do with a conditional use. And that
Yep.
would be unusual, and I don't think that's what we're talking about here.
But it would affect the height of the wall, is the point.
No, I got that, and I wasn't smart enough to go look at it, I wasn't even aware of it. Apologies. So I just wanted to make sure that process had already been considered, and
Yep. Yeah, we can't,
it's not orthogonal to this process. We can certainly, and if there is a waiver required, I think, first of all, the Code Enforcement Office has some discretion, and then if one is required for certain, then it goes to the Board of Appeals, not to the Planning Board.
I think so, yeah.
No, I just looked it up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
it's an
Yeah,
interesting.
just to make sure.
Well, it's not a waiver, then it's a variance.
In any case, when you write up the facts and findings, it's, I think it's conditional on the applying for and the granting of that permit. And whether or not a waiver is needed, or a variance, or who gets involved, I think that would take care of that path
I think so.
being
Yeah,
well documented and
yeah.
and not interfere with it when,
Oh, no.
I just worry that Warner and his team will have their hands full too.
Yes,
Okay.
but I
I don't
think
wanna-
we'll have to modify the finding of facts before.
It sounds like you just
Yeah,
add another fact that,
yeah.
or maybe it is a condition, that it's a condition upon granting of a
Yeah, I think I'll make it.
application and a granting of that permit.
Of the waiver and the permit, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm suggesting that you don't need
Okay,
the
no,
waiver
talk about-
remark.
Right, not for us, that's.
Yeah, that's what
not
I
for
think.
us, Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
if it's part of the permitting process of the code enforcement office.
It is.
Then it's not a condition of ours.
Okay, so I don't even need to mention it, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you can mention that they're gonna need that permit.
Yep.
Well,
Oh, well, you already say that it's a apply with all Kennebunkport offices, so you really don't need to update it.
Yeah, I don't think I need to
That's
mention it.
right.
Good catch.
But the reason I brought it up is because the height of the wall could be impacted, and so,
Yes,
but I don't need to mention this in the finding of facts, is what it boils down to.
that's right.
So I'm going to modify
Well-
the finding of facts.
If you are gonna mention it in the finding of fact, it can be a fact that we discuss the fact that it may need,
Okay.
you know,
All right, yeah,
it will need discussion and review by the code enforcement office, but
Okay.
we,
I'll do it that
so you can flag it,
I'll do it that way.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
But
part
the
of
point is,
the,
I'm not gonna read it tonight, I'll read it next week.
it is part of the building permit application, if you will,
If
that
it's part of
process.
the building permit application, then it's not something that the planning
Right.
board needs to put into findings of fact,
Yeah,
because the code enforcement office will take care of it.
yeah, okay.
So maybe you don't need to
I was
update it.
just gonna delete, yeah,
But it's interesting anyway.
yeah.
It was good education for me,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Are you saying that he needs to give us a new set of plans?
No, I've got everything, no, I got
Okay.
these yesterday, I marked them up yesterday afternoon.
Okay.
So these are the current plans.
And again, I
Oh,
think
and
the,
I don't really,
whether he takes
Yeah. All
that
the-
advice or not, all of that comes under the building permit.
yeah, all the comments I made were suggestions on how to better align the design with ACI requirements.
Okay.
And, so, you know, I'm not doing the design, if I had been doing the design, I would have done stuff like this, but Mr. Walsh is in control.
If you want his PE signature, it's gonna cost you money, though.
That's right, yeah. So I'm just making some
Called the
suggestions.
wrong guy.
So I don't necessarily need to
It's
see
all
another
free up
set.
at this point.
Those are just suggestions.
No, I
Okay.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
Yep.
All right, then. If there are no more comments from the board, then I'll open up public hearing for anybody that wants to comment on this application. Is there anybody here personally present, physically present in the audience?
No?
Okay. If not, is there anybody out there?
5 attendees, but no hands are raised.
No hand, okay. All right. Then I will close the public hearing. And I think this application, then, I think you're the manager. of
yes,
this,
yeah.
Yes. Uh-huh.
So I'll have the FOF next week, or next time.
Okay.
So can I
Okay,
make a
we have to-
motion that this
We have
be,
to make motions that
considered
the application
complete?
is complete.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so moved.
I'll second that. Okay. Any discussion? No? Okay. Then I'll take a vote. Ed?
approve?
And I approve.
Approve.
Approved.
Okay, then we're approved, and Larry will have a findings of fact at the next meeting.
Okay,
Yep.
great.
Thank
Thank you all. Thanks, Larry.
Thank you.
Okay, our next item for discussion is number 230702, Richard and Mary Steiger, at 11 Wildwood Avenue.
Hi, my name is Emily Gyrie. I'm one of the trustees of the residence. My sister was here 2 weeks ago and went over the initial. We were requested to make a couple of changes, but just to refresh, it's Goose Rock's property. It is currently a two-family residence. The request is to tear down the existing home, rebuild to have the first floor be ADA accessible. The current home is a 1950s home. My parents, unfortunately, they're online. They're in Florida. I think it's first time in 40 years or so they haven't been here. So ideally, we want to get them back next summer and make an ADA accessible first floor. We were requested to update the application to reference the trust and trustees, which we did. We are also requested for the base flood elevation drawings, which we provided, and you should have received last week. Are there any questions on those materials? We did provide the map that shows that we are not in a flood zone that Werner provided and confirmed as well, just to clarify that. I think it was a question last week that was discussed.
Okay. This is a continued initial review, so I'll open it up to the board for anyone that has questions.
No.
Yes, I mean, for me, it's non-conforming,
Right.
right? So it's non-conforming in all three dimensions, right? But it, up, right, left,
Not non-conforming in all three dimensions. I thought the height was fine.
yeah, but I mean, I think it was
In terms of the footprint.
the
and-
footprint, and it's actually reducing in size, so that's fine. We're not going closer to any of the property lines or anything like that.
Okay, so it's non-conforming in some of the setbacks, but
But
we're not
we're not,
increasing that
yeah, we're
non-conformance.
reducing that thing. The only question that I had, and I don't know if it was a labeling one, that they're talking about decks. And I think it's all part of the ramp
Yes.
mechanism, because a deck would be included in the area, would it not? Because if you had a deck, it would be part of the footprint area, but I'm not sure from looking at the plans if these are actually, quote, decks as opposed to access.
I believe it's just the ramp, and then at the top, there is a larger area to ensure that you can open doors and have ample space.
The
Yeah,
question is,
it's
when
not.
you're calculating the footprint and you're including decks, are you including those ramps?
And let me see, I know, Dad, that you're online, but including them in the specifics of feet or
The,
volume?
in the footprint and the square footage, basically, of the house itself.
If it would include the deck and the ramp?
Yes, does that
Okay.
calculation
Well, the-
include the ramps?
because the ramps, I thought I considered them like stairs, which
Right.
are out of consideration for footprint. Stairs are, so I thought ramps would be
Would also
too.
be.
That's a good
But
question.
decks that
I
can
don't
be
know.
enclosed are part of the footprint, so it was labeled deck, but looking, again, not
doesn't look-
physically
yeah.
seeing a three-dimensional model of it, it seemed like it was, well, that's just getting the ramp up to the house so you can turn to get in, so it's not really a deck per se, maybe more like a porch, I don't know.
Yeah,
the
it will
right
not be
term.
enclosed.
Yeah,
Right.
Tiger has his hand up in Zoom. Can we allow him to speak?
Yeah,
Richard, you can speak once you unmute yourself. He's not unmuting himself. Now we have Amy Noonan with a hand up.
That's the other trustee. That's my sister.
All right. Amy, you can speak. Amy, you're muted, but we can't hear you.
All right, I'm on, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear
Yes.
you.
Okay. Well, the question that was asked was, is it included in the surface area? And yes, it is. Paul Gadboy, the civil engineer that did all the site work, did the calculations based on having the ramp and the deck included as part of the coverage of the property.
that's,
And the coverage of the property with the revised house is less than the present coverage of the property.
Yeah.
Not by a lot, but it is less.
Yeah, but coverage is not what it's for when you're figuring out the footprint of the build, I thought was in the
Yeah.
regulations, not the coverage, but the actual structure. I thought decks were included in that for square footage.
Yes, they are.
Right, so that's different than,
But he's, at the first page of the application, the updated application says that the existing and the proposed structure have the same, in fact, slightly reduced
yeah.
footprint.
But if I look at this,
You're saying it doesn't
and I
jive.
include things labeled decks, I can't get there from here. But what I'm saying is, I think what they've included is decks here aren't really decks. They're.
Yes, to be able to move the wheelchair around.
They're where,
Right.
they're part of the access
For the
to be
wheelchair.
able to get into the building with the wheelchairs. So I don't know if, I just, yeah, in the future, that's not an enclosed, it could not be enclosed or whatever, because it wasn't part of the footprint of the house that was used to calculate square footage and volume.
Right, and at this point, we're not asking that that be enclosed, you're right?
Right.
I think it's
But
just a
it-
landing area
Yeah, and if it's maybe that's a better way to put it on the map, landing instead of deck.
instead of deck.
Because deck,
Okay.
decks are in the regulation included.
Yeah,
Okay.
landing and stairs could be enclosed, but still, even if stairs were enclosed, I don't think they'd be
Right,
included.
yeah, yeah, stairs are definitely in the,
So if you're going to equate the ramp with stairs,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter whether it's enclosed or not, it would not be
the
calculated in the footprint.
only thing that caught me was there's the pieces there that are labeled deck.
Yes, those,
So call them landings and, or whatever, then we're good to go.
Okay, we can do that.
Yeah,
Is that, it's a,
Just clarifies.
I don't think you would call that part of the landing, though.
yeah, then what would we call it?
You would call it a deck or a landing, but it would be, I mean,
It's part of the access is the thing. How do we make sure it's part of the access,
it
not?
can be part of the access, like a deck can be part of the access before a door into the house.
Right,
Okay, and we would include the footprint of the deck. So the landing is basically a deck, even though it's also used as part of the access for the wheelchair.
but it would not, its square footage would not be included in the square footage of the house used to do to 30%.
It would be included in the
It would not.
footprint of in the lot. It would be impervious
For,
footprint.
for
of
the impervious, yes, but not when I'm figuring out square footage and volume.
I don't think so.
Because I think decks are, we have in the past, have.
Only when they're enclosed, but this is not enclosed, so it wouldn't be included
Okay.
in volume.
Because I thought it was even non-enclosed decks that were,
Impervious surface, I think.
because I thought
That's
we had
impervious
done that.
surface.
That's just impervious?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah, that would just count as lot coverage.
okay. And then what about the attached shed? Would that be included or not?
The footprint.
That's
yes.
included in the calculations
So
for
that's
both the.
included in the square footage?
yeah,
Okay.
correct.
Yes, it's included in both.
All right, next thing. All right. Proposed shed accessory. And then there was a shower area, but that's not gonna be replaced. And
No,
the
correct,
Is that,
Ed?
what, is that in the back? Yeah.
Yeah, that one's out, okay. All right, those are the only questions I had.
Not for me.
I don't have any questions, you don't? Or-
No.
Ed, do you have questions? No. Okay, then,
Ex-
Well, I guess I have one question.
okay.
So, and it has to do with elevations. So, I was hoping to see the base flood elevation on the drawings, but I'm pretty sure it's above your floor level. So my question is, are you sure you want to apply for the permit knowing that the house elevations are, lower than the base flood elevation?
I think
Well,
because. Yeah.
the drawing that Werner sent me showed that we weren't in the floodplain. So, the base flood elevation, I don't understand how it could be higher than the
Okay, well,
11
if you're not
foot
in, if you're not in the floodplain, then
point
that's,
75.
Right,
if you're not in the floodplain, that's, it's okay, there you go. Clarifies it,
Perfect.
thank you.
thank you.
Okay. Well, if there are no more questions, I'll take a motion that this application is
Complete.
complete.
I'll move the application's complete.
I'll second.
Okay, Ed?
Yes, approved.
I approve.
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 Okay,
Great,
then we'll have a public hearing at the next meeting,
okay,
which will be at the beginning of September,
great.
the first Wednesday in September. I don't remember when that is.
And do we need someone to be here in person for that, or can we be via Zoom? How does that typically work?
You should have somebody here representing in person.
Okay,
You can continue the way you are right now, as long as there's one person that's
okay,
here that can, if the members of the public have questions, for example, that you could answer them.
okay.
Okay. Is it in the same location or is it in a different location?
We're always in the same location.
Always
I
here.
don't think we
Okay.
have a
Oh,
met
okay, all
anywhere
right.
else.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I think it is a requirement, isn't it, that there be somebody in person
Hybrid meeting.
For the public hearing?
for the public hearing?
Well, well, they have to, somebody needs to make a present, sort of an introductory presentation.
We'll get back to you. Okay.
Yeah, if you could,
Just get back to her on it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can find out for sure.
yeah, if you could. Okay, thank you.
If it's a requirement, then we got to, but I think we can accommodate her if it's
Yeah.
a hardship.
Thought I remembered reading that,
Okay.
but that was before hybrid
I was
meetings.
gonna say, I'm gonna have to brush up on that.
Yeah.
Based on like how everything's changed, and this is still continuing as a hybrid meeting, so I'm not sure.
Okay. All right. We'll answer that question later. Okay. Next item on the
Thank you.
agenda is item number 3, 230703, 63 Pier Road. This is a site plan review application and initial review to reconstruct a new dock and replace the original dock destroyed in October of '22.
Okay, great. My name is Lisa Vickers. I'm here on behalf of the Siegler Living Trust. I have 2 members of the trust here tonight. I'm with Flycatcher LLC for this application. The project site is located at 63 Pier Road. Next slide, please. There's imagery on the screen before you. It's from the Maine Geological Survey. It's from 1962. It's basically the oldest that I could find that had any sort of clarity to it. But the red arrow is showing you the dock as it existed in 1962, as well as some of the development on site. Next slide. This is an image from the Maine Office of GIS. It's from 2022. It's just basically a low tide aerial. Again, showing you that that dock was in place. I don't have the exact month that it was taken, but it does show you the general overview of the area. And then, again, the dock was in place. It does not, I should note, have the seasonal ramp and float that are associated with it in this image at that time that the photo was taken. You can go next slide, please. This is an image from the upland taken by one of the owners. And you can see that the dock extends from the upland. There's shrubs there. There's a concrete pad. The dock is 6 feet width, and then a portion of it has actually come off, and that's to the right of the dock, and you can see that that's just in the water. Yep, exactly. There is the rectangle kind of to the right of the dock that's in front of the shrubs. That's the float. That actually received a building permit to be replaced in 2018. It's 8 by 10, and it's going to be the same float that we're proposing to utilize for this reconstructed dock. Of note in this image is that the dock, if you see, is basically almost at grade with the cobbles in the intertidal area. That's an issue, and that's one of the reasons why we're proposing the dock the way we are. So just want to make a note of that image. So if you could go to the next slide, please. And this is just an image of that pier that had basically been ripped off. Essentially, one of the issues is when it is constructed at such a low grade, you have all that energy from the tide coming in and out and pushing up against it. And so this is one of the reasons why we're proposing to construct it higher in elevation, which I'll discuss as we get to the plans. But next slide, please. This is just showing you again another image of the pier, the portion of the pier that was still in place. The other, what you saw was in the water, was ripped off, so this is what was left. Again, the float is there, and then the concrete pad is further inland. You can see kind of in between the shrubs there. Again, yes, thank you. Exactly. Next slide, please. This is not the greatest to show you the dimensions, but what the point of this is to show you that this is the concrete pad. It was 6 feet in width. And the last image, you could see that the pier was exactly in line with that. And so I know one of the aspects that makes this dock non-conforming is that it is 6 feet in width. I know that if we were to build it today, it would have to be 4 feet. So this is just to show you basically that the dock that was in place was 6 feet in width. Also, in comparison of the other photo with the float in place, that float measures 8 by 10. And although you can't really, it's not, I don't have, a tape measure up there that you can see with great clarity. You can kind of get a general idea that the width in relation to the width of the float that's in existence is 6 feet. I know I was looking through Michelle's comments and that, we need to basically, burden of proof is on us to show that that was 6 feet. We do have aerial imagery that we use to measure. That's not the greatest because there can be a margin of error there, but I also have a report from 1996. It's a complete appraisal, and it does make note of a 6 by 100 foot long pier. So I can provide that with the next package of information for you. So next slide, please. This is an overview, an aerial image with 2-foot contours, basically showing the dock will be located in the same location. We're going no further seaward. We're going to keep the same float. We're going to basically keep the same length of the pier. However, the ultimate goal is to raise the pier elevation from where it existed prior. Again, there's several factors why. One being that when you have it constructed low to the ground like that and you get that tidal energy coming up, pushing up, it's underwater quite a bit. And as we all know, if we've walked on wet rocks in the ocean, they're quite slippery. So it also causes an unsafe condition for the users of the dock. Our typical standard construction is 3 feet above the highest annual tide. So that's the ultimate goal. And so when we looked at this project, we know that we're non-conforming as far as length goes, plus we just don't want to, extend any further, given that there's a federal navigation channel right there. And the length meets the applicant's project purpose. It's a partial tide dock. And so what we determined was that we could actually reconstruct the dock by sliding. It measures 6 by 80 feet, and I should say the pier. I just want to kind of get the lingo that we use so that everyone kind of understands where I'm coming from. When I say a dock, that's usually 3 components. It's typically a pier, which is your permanent section, a ramp that's seasonal typically, and a float that's also seasonal. And so what we're proposing to do is keep the 6 foot wide by 80 foot long pier and just slide it back so it's over that already existing developed concrete pad essentially. And that gives us the ability as it moves out, it'll have that 3 feet above the highest annual tide elevation. And then in order to keep the float in the same place, what we're proposing to do is just lengthen the seasonal ramp. And so if you could go next slide, please. And then this is the same image. Unfortunately, the It's a little whited out there, but white out. Doesn't really show the contours, but just the same image, it just doesn't have the aerial background. And then the next slide, please. I guess it's hard to see on there. Again, I should do a darker background on the next round. So the ramp will be 3 by 36, and that will connect to the 8 by 10 float that's already there. The pier will be supported with pilings pinned to the ledge. It looks like a little bit like some artificial fill, but that image from 1962 seems to show that that's what the level was. It's just from my kind of biology background, it looks like a little bit of artificial fill. I mean, it could be 100+ years old. But that will the pilings will be secured to that area. And the seasonal ramp and float, again, will be removed in the off-season. The float will be secured in place with chains that are pinned back to the ledge, as it is now. And we have applied to the Army Corps of Engineers as well as the DEP. When we looked at this, we thought, well, we could easily submit a permit by rule to the DEP, have a permit in 14 days and go on our way. But again, a best management practice for a project like this is to build something that your hope has the longevity. And clearly the structure that was there before did not have the longevity, maybe for a number of reasons, but one being that the pier should be raised to provide that elevation above the highest annual tide line. We have not received either of those permits. I've been in touch with the project managers. They're still under review. And so we anticipate having those within the month or two, hopefully. And then we're here before you. And then after that, we intend to apply to Code Enforcement Office for the building permit and as well as the floodplain permit. So that's any questions.
Members of the board? Questions? Mike?
If you could just help me with the math, in the 1996, there was a 6 by 100 foot.
Well,
Ish.
yeah.
And then I've got an 80 foot plus a 36 foot, which has got me bigger than 100 foot.
So pier, so again, we kind of break it in, we kind of call it collectively a dock. And so what we break it into is a pier, a ramp, and a
Right.
float. And so what this appraisal that I have makes reference to, let me see exactly what it says. I believe it references a 6 by 100 foot pier. However, all the images that I found in aerial imagery, granted, I don't think it goes, the ones that have any clarity to measure, go back to 96. They typically are start early 2000s. It shows an 85-foot pier there.
So
Yeah,
if
so,
it's 85 foot, I'm still trying to figure out if I got longer or not.
Where's the measurement start?
Yeah.
well, see, this is not a report that
No,
I
for
did.
85 or
so-
100 in general, where are, in your project,
Sure.
where are you measuring that first large increment?
So the start of the pier, if you could put the cross-section back up. Okay, it's the last slide for this.
Go on.
Other way. Oh, back one. Yep. So the start of the pier is essentially where we start our measurement. So the wide section, the brown section of this, that is what we're calling the pier, and that's 6 by 85. This appraisal, again, from 1996, I wasn't involved with it, so it's hard to say exactly how this person may have measured it. But what I have here is a note in this report that just says, at least a portion of the dwelling is located in the V2 flood zone. Additional features include a 6-foot wide by 100-foot wooden pier. And so, 1996, it could have also, the floats are wood. Nowadays, you use a, aluminum ramp typically. There are wooden floats out there. I can't, 100% say exactly what this report, how they measured it, but I just know from my research that I've done with aerial imagery, what I found was a 6 by 85-foot long wooden pier portion. That's the permanent portion. So we're staying with that. The reason that I brought up this appraisal report was mainly because of the width, because again, the burden of proof is on us to show that it was 6 feet wide. So I can say with clarity that, it was 6 feet wide based on this report. As far as
But
the
is-
length,
Is the length also something that's,
yes,
quote, non-conforming or whatever?
yes,
So the width, okay, I can see that it looks like it was 6 feet wide before it got washed away.
mm-hmm,
But I'm still trying to figure out how long it was, so we're not going any longer, and I can't.
oh, sure, so to provide the, like, the length of that, sure.
'Cause
Yeah,
when
no, I can,
When I added it, I got more than 100. Yeah, I got 115 versus,
Originally 115, and now it'd be 130 feet, so you're
Yeah.
increasing the nonconformity.
well, if you measure it, yeah, so we are, that's
Couple of
in the application that we are asking that.
Couple of questions, and I don't have the ordinances in front of me, maybe code enforcement can help out. This came down in, the storm in October 22?
October, yes,
Okay, and what's the time frame for rebuild?
It's a year.
It's a year, okay.
Yeah.
So that works. And because right now, if it were a new dock, it would be,
Close to the mic, please.
sorry, for a new dock, it'd be 4 feet
right,
and no longer than 100.
sure, yep.
And it would not be in the velocity zone.
Correct, those, yep, those are all make it non-conforming, which is in the
So
application
one of the things
notes.
we talked about is that you are moving it back onto the concrete pad.
Mm-hmm.
How much and how is that changing the length, or is it changing the length?
It is changing the length in the upland, correct, and I can get you that exact number, I don't
We-
have
we
that
would
on the
definitely need that
plan.
exact number,
Sure.
because that's different from what it was before.
my starting point is different.
I
If
think
we're-
what we-
Right, exactly right, the starting point is different, so we're
So
starting
that-
further back.
That figures into the total length.
It would be very good to have a diagram that shows the original as best you can.
Sure.
With the concrete pad, and then an overlay on that,
Yeah.
that shows basically what you're doing new.
Sure,
Because I got as confused as you did
Yeah.
doing that. And also, in each one, where the velocity zone is, whether you're going closer or more into that V zone. And
I'm
and
sorry, what was the question? Or,
whether you're going further into the V zone.
oh, right,
Okay, and the other thing is why you think you can't have a 4-foot width on the dock to bring it more into conformance,
mm-hmm,
You're
I
talking
can
about on
include
the
that.
pier.
the pier.
Yeah.
the pier portion, correct.
I don't see that a 6-foot wide concrete pad makes it imperative that you keep a 6-foot wide pier.
Okay, we will certainly provide that information why that width is requested as far as this goes.
Okay, and keep in mind, there is also somewhere in here, a regulation on the openings, the distance between the planks on the pier.
Yeah, it's a half inch.
It's a
for-
half an inch,
yeah.
that's right.
Forming too.
Hey, I'm assuming, seeing I've never worked here with a dock, pier, float, whatever this thing is we're working, but nonconformance works the same way as it would with property lines and all the other things that we did. You can't go more nonconforming, you can go less. And so it's that being able to visually see how we're either maintaining nonconformance or we're actually making it less nonconforming is what, visually or in the plan is what we're trying to figure out.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's one of the factors that we need to look at. The other is there is somewhere in the ordinance, and I had it, but I think you need to be a foot above the ground and at least with any pier.
Right, I mean, like I said, the whole point of this, like, we could have just replaced it in kind, which made a lot, like, life's easier for everyone, but what we're trying to do is to kind of do the right thing by elevating it to make sure that we're constructing a structure that, lasts a long time. And so we are trying to elevate it, but the only way you can really elevate it, because one of the reasons is you can't land the float over the rocks that you see in that intertidal. In some of the images in the application materials, you can see how the rocks extend out, and I can include, additional in my presentation next time. But basically, we want to keep the float where it is, which is just beyond the edge of those rocks. So the only way to get it higher is to go back into the upland, which is less out of, I have to look at the elevations as far as the V zone goes, but and again, it's existing developed area, so,
But what I'm talking about is that I believe the pier all of it has to be at least a foot above the ground
Yeah.
level. Have you considered, since you have so much shoreline there, have you considered putting the dock in a different place where you could be a lot less non-conforming?
If you could bring up, sorry, the sheet 1, that was also included. I did, under the section of the ordinance and the application for, I mentioned, just keep going. Keep going. Yep. All right, this one right here. Oh, sorry. Yeah, so when we looked at this, as far as like a replacement, a different location, we don't want to go further to the north because the repairing line comes in a bit in there, and it's, you know, good neighbors to keep a respectable distance there. I mean, even though you could go technically within 25 feet of the sideline setback. We looked to the south, and, you know, we're not going to put it to the very south. The roadway is right there. It's not necessarily, from an access perspective, does not make sense with the road so close by if you had kayaks or other watercraft, like a paddleboard. So if you can see where the mean low water is the light blue line that's furthest out, closest to the dark blue, which represents the Federal Navigation Channel. Any other location to get the water access that they have now would require, it wouldn't meet any of the ordinance that we could. You know, it would be within the V zone, which we couldn't do a new dock in this location. So we're essentially applying under Article 8 of the land use ordinance. And so we couldn't, I mean, that would just kick it out right there. And then as far as the length goes, you know, you'd have it stop pretty short, and you'd have much more restrictive tidal access than what they have now.
It's just that you're putting the pier back into a place where it juts out more than any other place on the shoreline.
But again, we wouldn't be able to put a new pier in here because it is in the V zone.
Okay.
So we kind of are, under Article 8, we do have the ability for a non-conforming structure to replace it. So we kind of tried to go through those standards the best, and obviously need to submit additional information to show that. But that's kind of why we're, you know, if they came to us today and said, can we put a dock in, we would say, no, you can't, you know, so.
I think I understand what you're saying. You can't put in a new dock.
Right, so you
because
can't,
it won't work.
right,
So you're gonna rebuild the old dock,
right,
but you're gonna make modifications to that.
correct,
I think what we need to see are, that overlay that
Right.
shows that, yeah, this is pretty much exactly where the other one was.
sure,
We're not gonna get out with inches, but it's gotta be in the same spot. And the justification for that modification,
mm-hmm,
and perhaps how that modification is making it more conforming or less non-conforming. Nina said, you know, foot off the ground kind of thing,
sure,
meeting those parts of what a new dock would have to meet. Since you're not doing a strict rebuilding of exactly what was there.
sure.
Can I ask us a question along those same lines? So if, I'm trying to make sure I understand from the words and trying to form a mental picture. You want that 8x10 float to be in the exact place that it is today? No further out,
Correct,
no further in,
correct,
not to the left, not to the right?
correct,
Okay, so it's not getting any longer into the water.
correct,
But to raise it up, Nina pointed out, it already wasn't built to spec, if you will. It was laying on the ground. To raise it up, you need to come inland further. Is that correct?
That's correct,
You're
yes.
lengthening it, maybe adding to that non-conformance of length
Mm-hmm.
in order to raise it up and to become more conforming in that regard. So I think that trade-off, we need to see that.
sure.
Um,
That makes, yep,
If my words are clear, that's
No.
where I'm seeing the leverage in your argument. I'm piecing it together, I
Sure.
think, but to me, you know, it sounds like a reasonable approach. I think with regard to the 6 foot, you know, I think You're reconstructing something that is grandfathered, non-conforming. You're not obliged to bring it down to 4 foot. If part of your selling argument is not only is we had to make it longer, but we're making it less non-conforming because we're raising it up, and by the way, we're making it a little narrower, that would be even more persuasive. I'm not here to do horse trading.
Sure,
All I'm saying
no.
is that what is it exactly that we're doing that the board can say, yeah, that's right, it is no more non-conforming than it was, and it's better built, and it's gonna last, and that sounds good. It's not,
No, because if you raise it up, you're adding the length and you're making it more non-conforming.
with respect to length, that's
with
right.
respect to length.
But it's either.
So what are you getting for
If
that?
I don't do that, then I gotta keep it down closer to
That's
the
right. That's right.
thing. So what I'm hearing with Ed is we're trading off one with the other.
One nonconformity from
Yeah,
another, for another.
because of the way the earth is shaped and the slope,
Darn that earth.
I raise it up, I gotta go longer because I gotta get to the ground. Otherwise, I leave it down low and I'm there. So it's, if I do this to make it, better all the way around, then I gotta add, I don't know, 6 feet on the end to be able to hit the pad or whatever. But to me, actually understanding those dimensions and what we're talking about, to go up on the thing, is it 2 feet or is it 30 feet?
Yeah.
I don't know right now. The mic.
Do you want to speak? Sure.
On a personal note, as a child, I once spent.
Please introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Leon Ziegler. I live there. So, thing is, as a child, I spent some time in hospital because I slipped on wet wood. It's very humorless to do so. Breaking vertebrae is no fun. I got 2 of those broken. That's why putting it up a foot would be nice. That's all. I can tell you, it hurt. Thank you.
It looks like it did not have hand railings before, is that correct? Or is that, did they just disappear with the storm?
Oh,
No railings, no.
So it's going to be made safer in that regard as well.
I thought there was some on the end and then one of those images, but maybe I'm wrong. Oh,
No, what you see there is, that is the ramp. It had a wooden ramp.
oh, I see.
A
Okay.
really heavy, short, nasty thing.
Yeah.
And that's what you see there lying there. And
And that had some railings,
Yeah, sure.
but the pier part of
No,
it
the
pier-
did
no,
not.
no.
But this one will.
Oh, yeah, you have to.
Suspect.
Yeah,
Yeah, of
right.
course.
Yeah.
So again, it's less non-conforming in that regard. Make sure you display all of the cards that you have.
No, right, and I mean, I do try to go through each of typically the performance standards that are
Very well done,
required. And in this case is a little bit unique because it is under the non-conforming section. So I did try to kind of lay out that, but certainly I will add to that.
Much appreciated.
Yeah, of course, and I think, picture says 1,000 words, or drawing will help in this case to show that overlay for sure.
All right.
So are we continuing the initial review? Is that what?
I
our-
think so.
I think so, yeah.
I think so
Yeah,
too.
can I move to that?
Yeah.
I would move that we continue this initial review pending the receipt of the clarifying
Sure.
drawings and any other points you want to make relative to the nonconformance not being increased.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay,
Thank you.
and your vote?
Oh, yes, please, I affirm that.
Oh, approve.
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 Okay. We need a case manager for this. Anybody volunteer?
George sounded like he was all over it.
I've done dogs before.
He's a doc
George, you
guy.
volunteered.
He's my man.
We could do you a retaining wall if you'd like.
Waiting for an easy.
Those are dogs, yes.
Yeah, I'm in, he says.
Good, thank you.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Okay. And we come to the last item of the evening, number 230704. That's 22 Agamenticus Avenue, Atlantic Environmental. And you're on for this one, too.
Oh,
I had Atlantic.
Thank you. I'll be in touch.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye, take care. Lisa Vickers, again, but this is with Atlantic Environmental. My company, Atlantic, merged with Flycatcher, so, but this was done under Atlantic, so that's why it's same person, just different company. So I am here on behalf of the Waha Family Limited Partnership. They own property at 22 Agamenticus Avenue. Next slide, please. This is actually the same source from the Maine Geological Survey. Again, it's from 1962. This shows the existing house that's out there, as well as there was a dock. And then you can see in this image a bit of the seawall along the property line. So this application is in relation to a seawall that exists out there. Next slide. This is just the tax map overlay, again, showing you, this is actually taken when the dock was, seems like it was under construction. I think the planning board approved the dock rebuild several years ago. It was done by Proc Marine, who will be the contractor for this site. Next slide. Oh, this is a video. It's similar to Bill Walsh's presentation. You can go ahead and, this is again that December storm that was pretty historic at this point, if it can play. It was actually from, it was uploaded, oh. Yeah, that's okay. I mean, you kind of saw it in Bill's. This is not quite as an exposed location as that project, but similar idea where you have this vertical facing wall and you have just incredible energy from the waves crashing up, slamming against the wall and overtopping the wall. Next slide. And we're partnering with Proc Marine, who will be the marine contractor out here. And so the video was actually taken from the other side of the pier. And this is just showing you basically a portion of the existing wall. Again, similar to the prior project, it's a stone and mortar wall that's been in existence for an extremely long time and is in disrepair in some areas. Next slide, please. This is looking at the residence, which at its closest point is about 18 feet or so from the top of the wall. This is, again, showing you the existing conditions of the wall. This location is actually an area that we're not proposing to do any work. You can kind of see it has some natural ledge in the front there. There's the cement down below, kind of a, I don't know, kind of footer, and then you have the wall at the top there. Although you do, you get some storm surge in this area, the wall is stable enough that we did not feel that additional work needed to be done. And we try to, when we approach these projects, we have to apply not only to locally, but federally and state. And one of the big things with this type of project is that we need to avoid and minimize our impacts to the coastal wetland. And so anywhere that we can avoid impacts or minimize impacts, that's what we try to do. Next slide, please. So this is showing you the condition of that wall. And this is basically the start of where the work will begin. That last slide to the very right, it's hard to see, but there was a flagpole, and that's included in the package I have you. The same images in the packet are in this presentation. But the wall will basically, because the house is so close, and in working with the marine contractor, the idea is that we are going to leave the wall as it exists alone, just given the existing development at the top of the site. We felt that we could put riprap in front of this wall, and that will stabilize the wall, and then in addition, we'll raise the elevation of the wall by pinning a granite block to the top, but I can get in more detail about that. Next slide, please. This is showing you sort of towards the end of the wall. Now, we're not going to be pinning a granite block in this location just because there's obviously nothing to really pin it to. I have some other images that show the flat surface of the wall. It's essentially like a concrete cap there now, and so the block will pin to that. This is at the very end where you can see the storm surge has gotten in behind and it's eroding out back behind that. This is what we're kind of referring to as a transition area. We do intend to put riprap here. Next slide. This is showing you looking back. Like in the other image that was just there was looking in this direction. Now we're looking back towards the northerly property line. You can see that, in some areas where the storm surge has come in over time, there's just essentially been sort of a Band-Aid place with just putting in some stone. What we intend to do here is this is where the granite block will be. pinned to the top of the wall to raise that elevation, and then riprap will extend in front at a 1-to-1 slope. Next slide. Again, here's another picture of that wall. Just seeing, you can see the base of it is a bit undercut. So not only from the wave action, but you have the storm surge, and then just the age of the wall in a coastal environment has been pretty harsh, but it has lasted quite a while. So next slide. And this is an area of the property where they're seeing more and more storm surge as these coastal storms increase not only in frequency, but also intensity. And so the vegetation in this area has been getting trampled because it is a cobble beach in the intertidal. It's getting overwashed with those cobbles as they wash up during the storm. So what the applicant wants to do in an attempt to, stabilize this area and save the vegetation is basically place riprap in this area. And I'm going to go through the plans. Next slide, please. This is just showing you, again, from the cobbles that have washed up from the storm. It was pretty incredible. We were talking to a neighbor, and I think even some of the cobbles were on, folks' roofs. So it was, that was an intense storm, but what we are seeing is they're definitely increasing in frequency. So next slide. Okay, so this is the overview of the plans that you have in the packet. And we've taken basically a 3-prong approach to this. So you have the existing wall directly in front of the residence, where we're not touching that, as I mentioned. And then beginning at the flagpole section, we're referencing this as Area A. And that's the section of the wall where you had basically the concrete cap. Yep, exactly, right here, where the wall was in a bit of disrepair there. And as you move to the north, we transition to Area B, and there's a transition area in between there. So the idea is that you'll place large irregular shaped stone, referred to as riprap. It'll range in size from anywhere from 2 to 6 feet in diameter. The base will have those larger stones, and they'll either be pinned to the ledge or they'll be buried in a trench about half the depth of the stone. It'll come out about 8.5 feet, and that gives us the ability to have a 45-degree angle, or like a 1-to-1 slope, and that'll connect to the top of the wall where we're going to put that granite block. Behind the existing wall, because of the storm surge and the erosion in that area, another approach that we want to do to help stabilize this area is to put native plants in there, because that, as you see, is existing lawn area. And so, the hope is that by putting in shrubs like juniper or bayberry, beach plum, Virginia rose potentially, you can at least have those roots take hold and at least help hold the soil back behind the wall. Because, you may still get some storm surge. I'm losing ability to talk in that area. But again, if anything that we can kind of have that help hold the soil in place is obviously going to help the situation. And then as we move to Area B, where you're seeing more of the storm surge area, that's where you'll have, on our plan sheet, you'll have basically the large stone dug into a trench and then stacked back to help dissipate that wave energy that's coming. So this idea of why we've designed it this way and not just replacing the wall is because, as we found over time, these vertical structures are just harmful, actually, not only to any areas of someone's property that don't have the wall, but abutting properties as well. So by putting that riprap, irregular shaped, large stone held in place, without mortar, then we can have, as those waves hit, unfortunately that video didn't show, but as they hit, then you can dissipate the energy along the shoreline. The area where we're not putting anything, as you could see in that image, had a lot of natural large ledge in front there. So there's not much of a concern that what we call end effect erosion or wraparound erosion will occur. And we're putting that kind of tapered off in Area B riprap. So as the energy kind of flows, it'll flow into the riprap in Area B, and then eventually that will just taper down to a single stone or so at the end. And the energy at that point, the intent is that it'll have essentially dissipated. And that's the general idea for that. And again, native plants will be placed in Area B behind the proposed riprap. I do want to make a note after the first presentation that I am not an engineer, but we are working with Proc Marine, who does have an engineer on staff who has been, helping with this. So these are permitting plans, they're not construction plans at this point. And I understand that we will have to have an engineer review them, so we will ensure that that is done.
I want to make a comment first on your application. Will you go down to the percentage of the lot occupied by other impervious and so forth? You say no change, but it looks like there's a change from 2% to 16%. Is that a typo? Did you mean to keep it 2%?
Yeah, that is a typo, thank you.
Okay. So that is 2%.
What's that? Yeah, that's exactly right. I'm busted.
I'll open it up to the board. Questions? I have one about, I see trees on there, very close to the wall. Are you planning to keep those trees? Are they alive?
Yeah, they're alive, and yeah, the intent is to keep those. You can see in some of the images in the application, one of the intent of, like, particularly in Area B, where those trees are, they've already lost some the shrubs, not so much a tree in that location, but that is, the idea is to place the riprap around those so that you protect them. Because what's going to happen is, as you get that cobble and the soil's eroding out, once the roots get exposed, that's more chance that you're going to lose that tree.
I'm just wondering about salt damage there. Do you know what those trees are?
I don't recall.
They look like they're hardwoods.
Yeah. There's definitely, in Area B, it's definitely a hardwood. It might be a maple or, yeah. I'm not good at my bark identification, but there is another large tree actually in front of the residence as well. You can see in photograph 9 and also 7. It's quite large. Horrible to lose that. It's quite old.
How do you envision the construction vehicles getting access to that wall?
Well, on the plan, sheet 1 and 2, I've put generally just a grayed out area, so it'll come down Agamenticus Avenue. It's on, if you have the plan set, but there's a existing dirt driveway in that area, and so you can, because the wall ends and it's a kind of a less slope, so you don't have that vertical slope, you could come down to the side there with small equipment.
So you won't have to get easements or allowances from the neighbors?
No. Yeah, so you can see that gray area kind of runs behind the house there.
Yeah, yes.
And so in that area, that's where the existing wall ends, and it's not very steep in that area, so you can easily take like a little bobcat or what have you to do that, and they'll stack some of the materials just in the upland for this. And the idea is it's not a huge length of a wall, but they'll work in sections each day. I would imagine they'll probably start, I probably with confidently can say they're going to start down by the flagpole, start in Area A, and then work their way up and then out.
No, I think you hit my concern when you told me that you're not going to need access to anybody else's property and the equipment that's going to come in there. I forget how big you said the riprap is, but it sounded like there might be a pretty sizable truck or front-end loader in there at some point.
Yeah.
But it's all on the owner's property.
Yeah, it's all on the owner's property. Yeah, and they actually considered barging it in, but because of the ledge in that area, it's really not a feasible option.
Understood.
Because Proc does have a barge, so it's usually a really great way to,
It's too shallow there.
Yeah, that's just not right. It's not feasible.
It seems to me the difference between this and the St. Anne's is you're not having to put that coffer dam in there because you're going to be working in the water. Here, you're basically working
You're
up on the shore, so you have the access, where in that one you were literally in the ocean.
If this was in the middle of Goose Rocks Beach, you'd have to be, coming in from the sides and going up the beach, and none of that applies here.
Yeah, I'm not driving over anybody else's beach,
Yeah.
No, good.
And what you're doing isn't going to disturb and deflect water onto some neighbor's
No, we were in,
property either.
right, we were in communication with the property owners to the north, because I know they had some concern. And
Yeah.
as part of DEP's process, we did hold a public informational meeting, which was great to get in touch with them, because there was some concern about the angle of the property line, so we were able to work through that. And then what we've done is basically tapered it down. And I think with the scale of this, you can't really, when I zoom in on my CAD file, I can see, I've left a gap. But I think what I'm going to, I think probably submit another scale here, just to show it a little closer in that region, just to see that it does taper down, and there is a gap. And I think the intent too is also just to wrap a couple plants too, just to ensure that, as that energy again dissipates as it goes to the north, and then you have, tapered down, like I said, to almost this, large stone at the end, and then just another little bit of shrubs right there.
Do adjacent properties have similar erosion problems, or is it the unique location of this particular property is what's,
Yeah, I mean, we actually were in contact with the abutters, and they were a little concerned about the property, their
how's this affect
erosion.
me? Yeah.
But we went and looked, and honestly, it seems well vegetated. I mean, you have cobbles, like you certainly are getting the cobbles to wash up, but it wasn't to the extent that the vegetation was damaged, that you're, gonna lose it. So it wasn't something that I felt needed.
Wasn't pressing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's something to keep an eye on for sure, again, with these storms, but, yeah, it wasn't any obvious erosion. And they don't have any existing wall or anything like that.
That's all I had.
With the large riprap you're putting in, are you putting in smaller stuff in between?
Yeah, I noticed I didn't have that on there, so, there'll be filter fabric and then some crushed stone behind the riprap. And then as, the base stone will be the largest, and then as it's sort of stacked up, it'll become, anywhere from 2 to 6 is what we were saying for this site. 6 is on the large scale, but I think they want to put something pretty beefy, especially if they have to dig it down versus pinning it on the ledge. Like they could get away probably with a 4-foot stone. Did I say inch? I meant foot. But, if they're going to pin it to the ledge. But if they have to dig a trench for that base stone, that's got to be sunk down at least, half of its depth. So we want to make sure that we have a solid foundation to build up on.
Okay.
So I just had a couple of comments. First, I noticed that the location benefits from islands offshore that's going to tend to dissipate some of the energy, wave energy. But instead of referring to stones in terms of feet, I think you'd be better off referring to them in terms of tons.
Okay.
And so, and of course, to determine the weight required, you need some information about the wave height that you are designing for. And so, in this location, it's not going to be as severe as it was at St. Anne's,
No.
I'm sure. But still, if you could define the wave, the characteristics for the 100-year storm, then that could guide you toward picking riprap that'll survive. Because, if it's too small, it doesn't matter that you got the filter fabric and all that other stuff in there. The storm will rip it out.
Right.
You want to avoid that. So, I don't want to make a guess right now about what that looks like, but once you quantify the sea state, the 100-year storm, it'll be easier to determine the D50 rock size you need and the range of rocks. And so in a related topic, I think it'd be also useful to have a table of your, basis of design. That'll help us take a look at it. Anyway, that's all.
Well, we've ascertained that we're probably going to need an engineer to look at this, a marine engineer. Do we have one on tap?
So I talked to Werner a little bit about this, and that's something that you could even ultimately put in conditions in the findings, that they're going to need that approved by an engineer prior to bringing it to the planning office.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
And leave it at that, because that's usually something we leave on the side of the applicant.
You don't think they need it before we go forward with the application?
No,
No?
I don't think we need to look
no,
at
I
it.
don't think so.
Okay.
If they'll quantify you know, D50 rock sizes, Ranger rock sizes, and wave state, we can make some comments. So is the DEP happy with your proposed?
Yeah, so you know, because the way the rules are for the DEP is if you're over 500 square feet of impacts directly in the coastal wetland, under their Chapter 2 processing of application rules, you have to have a pre-app. So we had a pre-app, and we worked through, you know, what they were looking for. And then what we had was a public informational hearing as part of that, and then a pre-submission meeting even to see that the information we had. So we've been working closely with the project manager there. And again, there was neighbors had some concern about that property line through the DEP review process that I believe we addressed. And other than that, it's, you know, under review, it goes out to IF&W and DMR, and so they're waiting for those comments. We do have the Army Corps permit, which is included. So we did receive that. So we're just waiting on DEP and then, yeah, going through the local process now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So can we then find this application, make a motion to find this application,
Is this an application or a site review?
is it an application or
It's
site?
not, never mind.
It's an application,
Then finding complete.
complete, yes.
Okay, so, did you move that, Mike?
Yes?
Okay, second.
All right. Ed,
Yes, I agree.
I approve,
Approve.
Approve.
okay.
But we would like to get your updated information, though.
What's that?
Your updated information about D50 rock size. and
Yeah,
state.
yes, right. So is this hold a public hearing next, or?
Next time.
Yes,
Yeah,
the next
okay.
stop would be a public hearing, and that would be the first Wednesday of September.
Okay,
And it would be nice to have that before the public hearing so that the board can review it
sure.
and ask any questions.
That'd be great, thank you.
Great, thank you so much.
Okay, I'll take one more motion.
Oh, we didn't do case manager.
Miller time.
Move to adjourn.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, I think everybody approved?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
Approved, yeah.
we're off the air.
Neil Higgins used to be the dog person.